This morning was pretty rough to get started and motivated. The night at the club really did a number on all of us. But I wasn't the worst off. Adam juiced too much last night, and well, there are a few toilets needing attention, if you know what I mean. We were all in starvation mode, so I whipped up some food real quick before heading out to class. I have a feeling today's gonna be an exciting day. He was a machine. He would have wanted to take Betsy with him, but she was out like a light, and well, being on his own gave him time to think of a way to maybe ask Betsy for a date. He wasn't born yesterday, so he knew the others were gonna ask her out. He got the feeling Betsy liked him, but she was getting so much attention from the rest of the crew that he understood he had competition. He was prepared. Maybe a day at the park, maybe the movies. Whatever it was, he would think of something. Darian was smirking. For one, he was recalling Betsy's hilarious muscle display, which made him feel all sorts of wonderful inside. And for two, his family got his message back home that he was safe. They sent him blessings to pursue this magical creature that was able to turn his head, as no one was able to do so in the past. He planned to chat with Betsy, and it had to be no later than tonight. Adam was in no state for attending class, nor to pursue a date with Betsy, so he planned to stay in after his shower and watch sports on TV all day, whilst daydreaming of meeting Betsy's mom, Arabella. I swear this kid has the hots for her more than he does for Betsy. Betsy forgot today was Legacy Remembrance Day, and she penciled a trip to the family's gravesite to pay homage to her grandparents, Joe and Sophia. On her way out, she ran into Hayden and he offered to take her there, so she wouldn't have to mourn alone. As part of this memorial's ritual, they burned incense and said a prayer at the founder's urn. Betsy didn't have the privilege of meeting the grandparents, but the little stories she heard her mom and her uncle Antonio share were wonderful. I mean, they used to live off the grid and didn't have much for toys, but fished a lot. Reminds me a bit of Darian and his life in Sulani. Hayden went to meditate, and she realized she knew very little about the gentleman who drove her here, except he enjoys photography and was raised in Del Sol Valley. She wanted to know more about him, so she invited him to breakfast. It started to pour, but Betsy forgot her umbrella, and Hayden was not gentlemanly enough to give her his. She decided maybe he was preoccupied. He still seemed like his mind was far off, and so sometimes common sense just goes out the window. For a breakfast joint, the establishment was posh, like way posh. She started to worry if they were in the appropriate outfit for said location, but she brushed it aside to look at her menu. Everything on the menu looked delectable. All that dancing last night left Betsy famished. Before she ordered, she asked Hayden where he'd been last night. He said he didn't get a full ride scholarship like the rest of the fellas, so he had to take a part-time job. And well, it started right away. He was upset he couldn't join the crew, especially upset he didn't have more time with Betsy yesterday, and he hoped he could make up for lost time today. The rain kept beating on the sidewalk like a high school drum band. It wouldn't let up, nor would she let up on grilling Hayden for more information. She noticed Hayden had a deep scar on his face. She asked how it happened. He was caught off guard by the question and was saved by the dinner bell. Their food arrived. Betsy decided for a posh establishment. Her quiche was not up to her standards, but she was so hungry, she ate it anyway. Hayden never did answer her question about the scar. She realized he wasn't ready to talk about it, so she let it rest, for now. He did, however, tell her a story about the infamous Bailey Moon family that still took up residence in Del Sol Valley. How their claim to fame was Thorne Bailey himself, a self-assured con man that bribed his way to the top of the ranks in the acting career. He was asked to take family pictures not too long ago. He arrived early and found the current Bailey Moon heir sleeping with the maid. Oh, it was such a scandal. He was paid pretty good hush money and only ever told one other person, Betsy, and she felt honored. She had such a great time with Hayden, she almost didn't want the date to end. Had she not scheduled a bowling date with Frank, she would have stayed to chat longer. The conversations with him were riveting. Frank arrived at the alley a bit earlier than Betsy, as time escaped her a little, so he asked for a drink and started a set. Betsy was fashionably late, but got her shoes on lickety-split and prepared for a beating because, well, she was awful at any type of sport. Bowling is a sport, isn't it? She had nothing to fear because Frank Holland was just as bad as she was, and they had a good laugh about their shared awfulness. She couldn't stop thinking about Hayden and his photographic escapades. I mean, can you believe it? Getting an invite to the Bailey Moons as a novice, well, that meant he had to be good. A great photographer. She was kicking herself she never did ask to see his portfolio, but Hayden was pretty humble and would probably not want to share it just yet. He was a challenge, one she was willing to take on. Oh right, she was on a date with another guy. She had a tendency to think about other guys while in the presence of the current fella. But Frank had excused himself to go to the restroom. He was feeling under the weather. He mumbled something about alien juice he should have left behind and ran to the facility. When she rejoined him at the gaming station, he was covered in welty zebra stripes. He tried to make the best of the date, but was struggling big time. Betsy beat him at least on the console game and invited him to dance. He told her he would meet her there. He wanted to get some drinks first, but on his way to the bar, two guests were literally going at it. It was violent and shocking, and the lady won. Frank gave it a good college effort to finish the date off, but it was just unbearable to see him suffering. He begged Betsy to stay until the end of the song. She complied, but asked him to go to the walk-in clinic. He stated he didn't go to doctors, they were just like scientists back home who experimented on things they had no business experimenting on. They thought themselves gods and would bring doom to humanity. He told her he knew a few home remedies that would knock the welty stripes right off of him, and so she said her goodbyes and left him to his conspiracy theories. It's a shame. She was hoping to find more common ground where it came to the supernatural, but hopefully their next outing would prove a bit deeper. Canon Sinclair sent Betsy a text inviting her to the neighborhood spa. Windenburg was known for their desire to embrace alternative medicine, and this was one part a cultural experience and the other an excuse to be in a romantic setting. Betsy's family wasn't known to be super spiritual. They kind of flew by the seat of their pants type people. Things would get thrown their way and they'd just deal with it. They all kind of prayed to Madre Cosecha, but that was more a cultural thing more than a religious thing, and those were two different silos if you were to ask her. But as she attempted to stretch and bend in ways she didn't know her body could fold, she realized this indeed was soothing, and she was feeling less and less tension as she went on. Meanwhile, Cannon was a dude, through and through. While yes, he felt peaceful, he was also enjoying the view a bit too much. They parted for a brief moment before they rejoined each other at the sauna, for a bit of alone time and conversation. Betsy had never gone to the spa, and she took a mental note that she would have to bring her mom and sister here for Girls' Day. There were no awkward silences for these two. They found themselves a bit flirty all of a sudden. Maybe it was a realization there were just two towels between them and one another's skin. Maybe the glistening bodies were a slight turn-on. Whatever it was, these two were feeling it. Cannon asked if she was seeing anyone, and truthfully, she said she hadn't committed to anyone, but technically, she was seeing them all. He wanted to kiss her then and there, claim her for himself, but before things got out of hand, she told Cannon she wanted to try a massage, and off they went. Cannon asked for a deep tissue massage, and Betsy went for the hot rocks therapy. It was the most incredible of experiences, just letting some professional help relax and reinvigorate one's muscles by simply manipulating their elasticity and refocusing their energy. She had to say goodbye to Cannon and the Zen Factory, as her last encounter of the evening was waiting for her by the pier. Betsy lost count of all her new experiences in just one day. A visit to a posh restaurant, bowling in the afternoon, a trip to the most exquisite spa, and fishing. She never would have thought fishing would be high on her list of fun activities, but standing next to Darian under the stars while he attempted to teach her about the flies and bait was actually not too bad in her estimation. She had to admit that today she felt the most comfortable with Darian. Maybe it was the fact that she just had all the negative energy dispelled from her session with Cannon at the spa. But maybe, just possibly, could be that she fancied this stark stranger. They flirted, teased, and enticed one another with talks of likes and dislikes, and realized how compatible they were. He kept teasing her, and he was going to throw her in the water and instantly save her. If the lake wasn't freezing, he would have. He kept saying in Sulani he would have no doubt, and that made Betsy long for Sulani. Darian's Sulani. Maybe it was her DNA, crying out for a land she never knew, but always belonged to. The moon set, all the while they conversed, and slowly they crept closer to one another, not so much because of the chill in the air, but because of their shared magnetism. Maybe it was the power the moon had on them. Maybe it was just the shared intoxication of lust and desire they were feeling at the moment. It couldn't be love, not this soon. An intense like, yes, perhaps. Darian's face was flushed pink on his high cheekbones. He was bold enough to make his move, and she adored it. They embraced. It was all so enchanting. The setting, the company, the touch, the flirting, the excitement, the kiss. She could have sworn time stood still. He had never felt the touch of softer lips. She had never felt so weak in the knees. It was as if they were floating on a cloud and her head was swimming. Still in a haze back in the mess hall, her mind could not stop thinking about all of the events. The longest, most glorious day of her life. And it was all due to 4 of her roomies, the sweetest fellas on the planet. Next morning, Drake cornered Luke in the restroom. Luke was annoyed that he didn't have the opportunity to spend time with Betsy the day prior. 4 of the 7 guys in their crew had to, and was feeling a bit rejected, but was hoping Drake could give him advice on how to woo women. He figured this guy was older and painted naked ladies, for God's sakes. He has to have high charisma levels to achieve such feats. Drake, being the booger he is, gave him the worst advice. He told Luke women like strong body smell and men who didn't look after themselves because it made them look better. So he recommended for Luke to stop bathing and combing himself. If he had to fart, let it out. If he had to belch, let it squelch. That was his motto. Luke was amazed. No wonder he couldn't get women, he thought. He'd been doing it all wrong this whole time. While Adam dreamed of a world filled of article writing with Betsy's mom, Adabella, Darian invited Betsy to cloud gaze together. He couldn't get enough of the city princess, and she was more than happy to comply. Creative creatures have an innate ability to see the most descriptive animations within the clouds. Every shape had a meaning, and if you looked hard enough, the clouds might bless you with a vision of your future. I wonder if these two already know what the future holds. Drake was at it again. This time his target was Adam. He encouraged him to keep mentioning his standing Betsy's mom, how she loved it knowing in his core Betsy was actually feeling uncomfortable about it. Adam was encouraged by the fake news and decided to start practicing his monologue about Betsy's mom. He was so thrilled about the notion, he skipped to his computer. Darian caught the tail end of the conversation and was not at all happy with Drake's behavior. Darian told Drake these childish acts never have a good end, and if Betsy in any way got hurt, Drake would not like the outcome. Drake may or may not have felt threatened, and so he chilled out for a spell. While Betsy made the dorm some grilled cheeses, she started to think about how she couldn't realistically date all 7 of the fellas she was living with. For one, it would become too complicated, and for two, she already knew who she wasn't compatible with. It was going to be a difficult conversation, but one that had to occur. See, she knew for a fact that she had a strong connection with Cannon and Darian. Both such different guys, but they had a way to send her pulse racing. She started to get Hayden to peel back his layers. There was more to him. She knew she needed to know more, and it was just the kind of mystery she'd love the opportunity to crack. She had a familiar connection with Frank, and Drake was just hilarious. He was great for entertainment at the very least, so that left Luke. And so she had to let him down gently. Luke, being the genius that he is, had a sneaky suspicion this was not going to be a warm and fuzzy conversation. He didn't know much about girls or relationships for that matter, but he knew enough to understand this wasn't an opportunity to ask her for a date. Betsy was very diplomatic about her rejection of Luke. She didn't use the classic line, "It's not you, it's me," but instead was very raw and down to earth about it. She told him her head wasn't into getting to know Luke as anything more than a friend. She was growing strong feelings for some of the other guys, and she was already in a bit of a pickle given the situation. She went on to say he was going to make someone very lucky someday, but he should consider showering and general hygiene altogether. She giggled and said she'd heard the horrible advice Drake gave him and how none of that was true. Sweet Luke was feeling overwhelmed. He didn't get the girl. Someone he thought was a good friend lied to his face, and well, 3D gaming design wasn't really going how he planned, and truth be told, he was feeling homesick. So he decided to go home, back to Brindleton Bay, where his mother, father, baby sister, and 3 poodles were anxiously waiting for him to come home. Maybe he would pursue gaming development instead. Maybe he would take the rest of the semester off before he decided what his next move would be. He wished the rest of the crew good luck, as he would miss them all, but most of all, he'd miss Betsy.